Call to order for Ritchie City Council meeting Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. So I'd like to ask Sergeant Fields to our invocation.
So, Father, we just come to you in the precious name of Jesus. Lord, we just thank you for City Hall and all the stuff that's going to be on the agenda today with the CRA and all the way from 2 to 12. And there's so many things to cover, but you know what they are. So, Lord, we just thank you for the new vehicles that's coming in. And later, we'll get together with the fire department as well as with the chief with the vehicles they have and get to pray with them and bless the vehicles and, and just thank God that he makes everyone safe that uses them and that they last and that they're good stewards with everything they have. So, Lord, for the meeting, I'm just thank you for the team here because I know that so much comes at us in the everyday life that we need each other, and through teamwork, we can make a lot of things happen. It's the same thing happens here as within the faith-based church, Lord. There's so many people that have to run so many facilities, so we look to one another for our gifts and talents, and then we make votes on it. So with everything that needs to be talked about and voted on, and through the teams of each department, I thank you for the wisdom and the guidance and blessings in Jesus' name, amen.
Roll, please.
Mayor John Aaron Cooper.
Here.
Vice Mayor Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez. Here. Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here.
City Attorney Nancy Meyer. Here. City Manager John Gibb.
Here. I've got the 3 sets of council minutes. I need a motion for, if you could, when you get your motion, if you could put all 3 of those in there as a group. If there's anybody wants to correct a single one out of there, let me know, but we'll just do them as a group. Call for a motion.
Motion to approve the council minutes from 5/23/23, Sunshine Workshop on 5/30/23, and 6/1/23 special council.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion? We vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now I'd like to open up comments from the general public. I do have several signed up. First one is Michael Garrett. Is that correct, Garrett? Face it right. Durant, sorry.
Good afternoon, Michael Durant, 4927 Caney Court. I just would like to come today and speak about, I'm not sure if you're aware, but as of 2020, the Department of Environmental Protection and Army Corps of Engineers released a tighter restriction on docks on houses to only allow 25%. In 2021, I came to the building department and brought to their attention that my neighbor had intended to put a 43-foot sailboat that was 18 feet wide into a canal. And he showed me his plans, and they weren't correct. They continued with the dock building. On the permit itself, they claimed that the canal was 90 feet wide. However, it is only 75 feet because I've measured it personally. From there, they continued to, with the project. I relied on the building department, code enforcement, and the building department to, make sure he was in compliance. They simply overlooked it or just looked at the paperwork. I never saw him come out and measure. But this has definitely taken up more than a third of the canal. I know the city allows a third, but I really don't know how the city can supersede a federal and a state regulation that says 25% to allow the 1/3. This is, it's a hazard navigation. I can't really use my boat ramp that's on the side of my property now because, the vessel sticks out. It's less than 5 feet from my property line. Other neighbors, it affects them as well. It's not just me. There's 6 other vessels, on that canal. I attempted 2 other times as most recently as 6 weeks ago, I filed a formal paper complaint. I came in here to fill it out. I filled it out. 3 days later, I saw the building department out giving the neighbor an inspection, and I came over and talked to him. You know, very nice, greeted myself to show them, you know, what I was talking about, and they just kind of blew me off. They told me that there was a permit and it was good, and you know, I wasn't going to have an argument in his yard, but I'd really like to work with the city manager and to point these things out. I know, you know, we're a unique place when we have, you know, urban areas, we have buildings, but we also have waterways, so there's a lot of things there that are possibly overlooked. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Bob Hubbard.
Bob Hubbard, 7515 Grand Boulevard, Port Richey. Basically, I'm here just to reiterate my last visit. I was here. A lot of my neighbors and the residents talked to me about the speeding on the roads as we're talking, vehicles flying down Grand Boulevard 50, 60 miles an hour, and they were just kind of confused how someone here was comparing a fire engine or a fire truck engine to a pickup truck doing about 70 without a muffler at 10 in the morning, or a motorcycle coming out of Newport Richey doing 80, 90 miles an hour at 2 in the morning. I just witnessed a girl getting hit by a SUV last week doing about 80 miles an hour. It's not a pleasant sight. I don't think we should have that in our city when it can be prevented. It's a 25 mile an hour speed zone. People are doing average of 50 miles an hour down that road. Speed humps will slow them down. They do work, and the citizens don't understand why a couple $100 is worth more than their safety. People walking their dogs, they got electric bikes, they got golf carts, jogging, you're jumping out of the way, they got to look both ways. The residents or the businesses up on Grand Boulevard, you pull out of them, you're risking your life because people come flying down through that road right off 19. And I noticed that they put a speed check counter on an intersection across from the fire department. Well, you go downhill, I don't know what kind of numbers you got off of that, but if you go down the hill, they're going to be twice as worse as where you put them there. It's right in front of the fire department on an intersection. People are speeding as they come down the hill. That's where that should be counted. If you want to put a speed counter, put it on Washington. It's a lot worse than it is on Grand. There's just not as many pedestrians as there is on Grand Boulevard. So the people are concerned. It's kind of embarrassing for the people in Newport Richey because they got it all figured out. They got the speed humps down there and they do work, and a lot of citizens are happy with them. And that's what we need here. And by the way, over there at the Wilkins and Bay Boulevard, it's still dark, and they can put a light up there for free. All you do is call them, and they'll put it up for free. And if you want to pay for it, for the monthly fees, put an officer over on Washington for a month. That'll pay for it for 10 years. Thanks. That's all I got tonight.
Thanks, Bob. Next person I signed up, Dave Fields, welcome.
My name's Danny Fields, and my address is going to be 8114 Leo Kidd here in Port Richey. We do got some events coming up. We're going to be back in the neighborhood mobile home park. It's called Holiday, where code enforcement had issues there, and we went and tried to catch a lot of them up. They complied to a lot of them. Some of them is still a work in progress, but I'll leave that with code enforcement. But what we're happening there now, this 6/24/23 coming up, we're going back in there with the Light of the World Tabernacle, and through the police department, they got us some toys and stuff like that, and so we're going in there and having live music, food, fun, toys, and games, and also encourage apply to code enforcement in the city, and to not to be afraid of the police, and to report crimes or anything that would go on, and just continue to mentor them, encourage them, and connect them to resources in the county here through the city, so that way that could be a great neighborhood for them to live in. So you're welcome to that. I do have flyers. I didn't have a chance to get them to Ashley, but I could do that. I'll be here tomorrow. I could maybe if anybody's interested, wants to show up to that. They're kind of afraid of the police, you know, because it's a low area, and but the chief and me and him's talked, and I let the residents know they're good guys in the fire department, and if they get a chance to want to show up out there to fellowship with them and show them that they're there for them and not their enemies, but they are laws and things that need to be addressed and took care of. But they're not there for that part. That's the part of code enforcement and me and our teams to work with them. So we're going to be baptizing and people are going to get saved, and that's going to really change. I do want to hit another thing. We do have coming up a luncheon on June the 21st of coming up at 12 o'clock to about 2 o'clock, a staff meeting there and lunching. So anybody's welcome to that, and we can network together with our input, your input, how to work in the communities to make it a better place. But really what's coming up is on July the 20th, the backpack stuffing party. What we're doing, we're getting a lot of backpacks back to school, and then we'll be out at the park on July the 22nd at the Waterfront Park where we have these events at, and we're going to give this all away, and it's donations from local businesses, the church, and leaders and communities there, and the kids then get to go to school with prayers, blessings, and all this. There's probably about $50 worth of stuff in each backpack with all the school supplies, and so I just wanted to invite you to that. You guys will be getting a copy of all this, so thank you, and hope forward to see you in there, or at least get input from you later on, how we can continue to work together. Thank you.
Next up on the list, I have Dave Mueller. Welcome.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I've made some observations. I've been driving around the city, been riding my bike around, talking with people. One of the things I noticed this week, and I don't know if it's been published or not, I haven't seen it published anywhere. About 2 months ago, I noticed that the gate at Brasher had been rammed through. And I mentioned that to the chief. Chief knows about it. But I haven't seen any progress on the repair. So we need to probably get going on that. That's probably an insurance claim. I don't know where that stands, but these are the kind of things that people wonder, and it'd be important to identify that out there on maybe our Facebook page or the city's website about things like that. Also, I made an observation, and I've heard from other individuals, that the bathroom out there is locked. I don't know why it's locked. Is it in repair? There again, a little bit of information goes a long way, and I think we need to be more forthcoming with what we say around here so that people understand that we're actually trying to do something rather than fixing it by just locking it down. I don't know what the case is there, but that would also, a little bit of communication would go a long ways in that regard. One of the other things that Captain Bob mentioned about speed bumps, I had an opportunity to drive over on Limestone today, and I noticed that there's speed bumps down that road. And actually, they do a pretty adequate job of slowing the cars down. So maybe that ought to be something to give consideration. Or, like Newport Richey does, is they hold a, what do you call it, a police, where they radar you down 19 in the mornings. When I go to the gym, I see them down there radaring right over the hill. Maybe we ought to take an aggressive action like that if we're trying to get people to slow down as well. Thank you very much.
This deal on the bathrooms, the parks, we talked about, you guys will open up later because of the homeless issue. What time do they go open up now? Let me check this out.
Our parks attendant leaves the shop around 7 o'clock now during our summer hours, so they'll go around the park and open one. If there is an issue though, if there's been damage done or vandalism or they're clogged up, they will stay locked. We can get other technicians out there to repair the problem.
So they should be open by what time?
In the morning between, 7 to 9 in the morning, all depends, because,
Okay.
we only have one park technician. He goes from park to park, so.
Just like just to make the public aware that they may not be open when the park opens, but soon after that.
We can definitely post some information about when it'll be open.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Pat Rogers. Welcome.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I was going to talk about the thing at the Holiday Trailer Park, but Danny got that. So I will remind everybody that the luncheon next week on the 21st is a Somebody Cares meeting. So there will be multiple denominations there. It's not just our church, but it's open to a lot of people and anybody else who wants to come. And there will be food, and we would enjoy all of you coming if it's possible. That includes both of our chiefs. But I have another thing, and this happened last week, or maybe it was this week. It's been a rough week. I'm turning off of 19 on to, and a car pulls out from Bailey, which I saw just as I was turning, so I was prepared for that car to come out. But the one behind him I came within 2 feet of broadsiding him. I don't know that you can do anything about that other than have somebody keep an eye on it periodically. Sometimes it's not even going fast is the issue. It's just not paying attention. But other than that, I think we're all doing a pretty good job. So thank you.
That's all I have signed up. By show of hands, anybody else like to speak? Seeing no hands, we'll move on. I'd like to open the floor, Mr. Dude, comments from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The street maintenance project is getting ready to mobilize. We should have contractors in town here in the next week and a half to 2 weeks. Stantec will be here at our next council meeting. They're wrapping up the water sewer rate study. They'll have results for us that evening. We'll have a draft ordinance that matches the recommendations for your consideration. The hydrant at Leo Kidd and Pine Hill has been installed. Took us a bit longer than normal. Our vac truck is out of service, and that issue is on your agenda this evening, but personnel did get that hydrant back full service. Utilities Department continues to work with Swift Mud on the water loss audit, so that project is moving forward. Advanced Engineering, they're our firm that's designing our water main replacement. They continue to collaborate with AIRS. AIRS has sent them all of the CAD information they need. The piping network design is in process, so that project is moving forward. We had a chance to meet with Darlene Barone. She's an insurance broker. She's going to review our insurance, do some comparisons to alternatives. She'll report back to staff and council when that review is completed, hopefully in time to take that into consideration during the budget development. Staff had an opportunity to meet with Coastal Design and county staff. We're trying to coordinate the design of the pier and the county plans and the project that they intend in the adjacent property. The next step to that, county staff will be coordinating a meeting with city staff and the county administrator to see if there's ways to collaborate our project with theirs. So the design work's kind of on hold until we get that meeting set up. There's some design options that we'd like to consider that would make the entrance to the pier a lot prettier. But it's going to require some help from the county. And by help, I mean we need to build stuff on their land, and they'll need to agree to that. So working on that. The waterfront park prep continues. Our guys are working hard to get the park in tip-top shape in anticipation of our 4th of July holiday. Fireworks will actually be on the 3rd of July. So that work continues. Your interim city manager agreement will be on your next agenda. Your candidate and I are working out the final details, but I think we're about 98% there. The vulnerability assessment, Houth and Associates has submitted map updates. Those are under staff review right now, so that project is on schedule and continuing to move forward. The Safe Streets for All grant project, the grant agreement with FDOT will be on your next agenda. So there's been some back and forth between city staff and FDOT to get that ready for your consideration. So you'll be seeing that soon. The CDBG grant, that's about $62,000. We've responded to the county's request for information. So it's kind of in their court waiting for their final approval. The FEMA Ian hurricane response reimbursement. We got the majority of that, I don't know, a month and a half ago. But within the next week or so, we expect the final $1,000 for administrative costs to come through. Took a little longer to verify, confirm, to basically to satisfy FEMA that we had all the paperwork they wanted. But that'll be, it's not a lot of money, but it'll be coming in soon. The FEMA grant to replace roofs, City Hall, Fire Department, PD, and the Utilities Building. We had a request for information from Pasco County. We've also provided them a statement of work. So the RFI has been responded to. The statement of work has been provided. So that one's back in the county's court and awaiting their final approval. The fire department's air pack compressor generator trailer, that was a $125,000 FEMA grant. Bid packets for that project are being prepared by staff, so you'll see those soon. FWSP, there's a $450,000 grant that's been submitted for ramp and dock renovation. The state had a request for information in RFI, and that's been responded to. We anticipate award notices towards the end of the calendar year, so they're going to take their time, but it's a big chunk of money. If we are awarded, that'll make a big difference in the park. We have applied for a $60,000 turnout gear cleaning grant with FEMA. That, if awarded, that allows the fire department to get their gear cleaned after a structure fire. You can't just take those to the laundry and run them through the washing machine. It's a special process to make sure you don't damage the turnout gear. So the machinery is expensive, and right now we have to we take those to Newport, subcontract that. So we're trying to get the machinery so we can do it ourselves, get the gear back in service in a much more timely fashion. So if and when we get a notice of award, we'll let you know. It's a small amount of money, but we did receive notice of award for $3,000 from the National Police Dog Foundation. They're going to fund a heat detector for the K9 unit vehicle that helps protect the dog. If an officer gets out during the summer and it's hot and gets busy, an alarm will go off when the vehicle reaches a certain temperature and let people know that we need to attend to the dog. So appreciate Chief Robinson and Pam working on that to get some funds to help protect our new canine unit. Last thing, just a reminder, I'll be out of the office June 21st through the 23rd, so that's next week, and then my last week, Wednesday, Thursday, the 28th, 29th. And as you leave, you're probably not going to be able to help but see the 2 new fire trucks that you bought. They're out in the parking lot, and I can see the flashing lights, so the lights are on. If you take a look at them, get in them, look around. If you ask real nice, Chief might let you play with the siren. That's on him, but we wanted to bring those up so you can take a look at them, so you know what you buy and know what we're using to protect and serve. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I stand for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Next up is comments from the mayor and city council. I'll start over here on my left with Councilwoman Rodriguez.
Thank you. Mr. Newt, where do we stand with the Cody River Landing and Ayers? How are we doing with that?
We had a design piece go back to them, so they're working on bid packets at this point, and we approved it last council meeting. So they'll be putting together bid packets, and I think I already have them on the agenda for next council meeting to come back with bid packets. So once they tell us bid packets are ready, we'll go to bid.
Very good, thank you. That's the only question I have.
Councilman Colombo?
One thing, I might have missed it, Mr. City Manager, you were talking about somebody taking a look at our insurance.
Yes, sir.
What insurance exactly are they taking a look at?
Health insurance.
Health insurance.
Employee health insurance.
Okay, I'm very happy to hear that. That's good. Is this an insurance broker?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'm very happy to hear that. You also mentioned, this is one of my little things that always gets me, the July 4th holiday. It's the Independence Day holiday. July 4th, it's just a day.
My apologies. You're right.
I know there was a bit of a dust-up about that in a couple other places, but.
My apologies. We will be celebrating Independence Day on the
Yeah, well,
3rd.
there's certain things that get me every now and again, you know, it's like Memorial Day is Memorial Day where we honor the people who died in service of the country. It's not the first day of summer.
Correct.
Things like that, little things that kind of get to me. I think it's important.
I stand corrected.
Well, again, it's a common thing. In our vernacular, July 4th and Independence Day kind of mean the same thing, but I like to remember it for what it is. So. Other than that, I have no comments for right now.
Vice Mayor McClary?
You mentioned the pier project is on design hold. If I recall correctly, we were utilizing the ARPA funds for that pier project, or was the intent to use the ARPA funds?
Correct.
For that pier project. Since we're now on hold, does that in any way jeopardize the ARPA funds? Because if we don't spend them, we lose.
Right. That's something, as staff, we'll have to pay attention to if this drags out. The thing that we're on hold with, the pier design options are done. There's, several different options, and it's time for you guys to take a look. What we're working on now is basically the approach to the pier. And the designers thought it made sense to kind of take a more global look at that. Right now it's kind of rough. And so they wanted to consider making improvements to the south. I've got my directions lined up.
I think you're talking west. I'm sorry, to the west of the pier you're talking about? Limestone, west, the road leading up to it.
Yeah, between the restaurant and the county property, the roadway.
To the west.
And, okay. And so, when they brought that to us, I said, yeah, that makes sense, but, here's the property line, that's county. So it will behoove us to not let that go too much further. If it looks like we're not going to get anywhere with it, we'll stick with the pier. We can deal with the rest of it at a later date. But I've pushed to try to have a more global approach to this and tried to engage the county, 6 or 8 months ago. Their timeline is different, so I'm trying to push that timeline. But yes, that's something we have to pay attention to.
Yeah, we should definitely establish a drop dead date for the county. If we don't hear from them, tough, and move on, because if we lose those ARPA funds over that would
Right.
be quite a loss to the city. Whether we use it for the pier or anything else. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Cassell?
Yeah, I want to thank Nancy, your team, for that Sunshine Law workshop. It was very informative, and I did enjoy it. Our new equipment of our department, have we put that on the city posts? We're going to do that after tonight. Perfect. That's all. Thank you.
I got several things, so I apologize in advance, but one thing I talked to the clerk earlier about this is our sound system. There's complaints about the sound system and not being able to hear on the recordings. I actually went out there, it's really bad. She stated it could be the air conditioner issue that they've since fixed. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
The knocking, yes, has been fixed, and so what you hear majority of the time of the recording is the AC blowing more efficiently. So I know that me and Sal talked, trying to find alternatives to muffle the AC so it's not blowing so hard on the speakers, because the speakers are very sensitive. It kind of muffles your words on the recording. So we're looking at different options to try to remedy that issue.
Okay. So hopefully we'll have that worked out soon. The second thing I had, I attended the MPO board, and I put out a notification to the public to find anybody interested in, the MPO board has a CAC committee that advises the MPO board. And they were looking, actually Port Richey had been unrepresented for a long time. And so I put that word out to get volunteers, and I was able to get a couple of volunteers for that. They're actually here tonight too. So the primary for Port Richey is going to be Ronald McDonald, and the alternate Jared Griffin. So they're going to be representing Port Richey on the Pasco CAC board going forward. So thank you guys for volunteering. The third thing I got is some exciting news for the city. Ron McDonald also is working on this. And it's the Chamber of Commerce. We're in early stages, but that's well underway to have Port Richey have their own Chamber of Commerce, and he's spearheading that, working with the businesses. I've talked with those guys down there, and they're excited about it. So hopefully soon we'll see that come to fruition and be able to work with those guys. 4, dredging. Again, as I talked before, I've had several conversations with Pasco County, and the last conversation where we're at is, and I would like to see if I get permission to utilize staff, because what they want to do is meet with staff, with their staff, to go over, there's some maps that because originally they looked at our area, the Cody River area, is pretty much the city of Port Richey limits, and there's about, I think, 1,047, they identified 1,047, parcels. And so I know we've done some work in the past with what canals and stuff were in play. So I'd like to get you all's buy-in to set up meetings with staff, and that other could be Richie Weeks or who from staff would be a good.
Probably depend on what the topic is. If it's, are we gonna dredge in Port Richey, I'll meet with.
Okay, so
If you want to know where the pipes are, at that point, we'll bring Richie in.
what they want to do is kind of get a general idea of what's going to be in play, what we would like to see as part of that. And then once we kind of formulate that, then they would come out and meet with all of us here in council to answer any questions. And then the goal would be, if we make the decision to move forward to join that MSBU, we'd have to draft an ordinance to be attached to their ordinance. It would then go to the county for them to approve, including us in there, and then we go forward. But that preliminary work, we just want to kind of get an idea of what area we'd be looking at to be included in that. And then they run some numbers, the parcels, the sizes, and whatnot. And there's some formulas and stuff they put together. So is there any objections to have a staff work on that information with the county?
I have no objections with the city manager talking to that staff about anything. That's.
If I could, it would be very appropriate for me to talk to the county manager or anybody below him. It would be highly inappropriate for me to meet with a county commissioner.
Yeah, no, it's not commissioner.
I won't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to meet with county manager or his staff. And it's a matter of ethics. If the county commission wants to have a conversation, they can come talk to you all. Or if any one of you want to talk to them. But there's a necessary separation between staff from one municipality going to talk to another elected.
That's why I mentioned you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go talk to their staff and as you direct.
I really am kind of lost. I did not know that, I mean, dredging has been talked about in the way past. In the 5 years I've been coming to council meetings, it has not been spoken about at all. So I know the county has that thing, and prior to you, there was a kerfuffle, words were said, whatever. But this is news. I mean, we were not brought in, at least I have not been aware of anything. And I think that the lack of knowledge that this is the first I'm hearing about it on council is not real good communication. That, you know, like you've been doing all this, and I appreciate you doing all that hard work, but I think maybe we should have been brought in ahead of time, at least been aware of it, so that in case somebody said something to me, I wasn't in the dark about it. I just think that's.
Yeah, no, and I agree. That's why I brought up the last couple of meetings that I've been talking to the county about that specific program and what we can do if we join it. Obviously, it's a decision we make as a body, but there is some preliminary discussions that have to happen. And I was basically fact-finding, bringing it back to you. And so now that's where I am now. As we've communicated, we need to kind of formulate what we'd be looking at. Then they can come in, they give some more information. And I'm happy to expound on that a little bit, what I know about it. But
who were you talking? Like, who were you talking to?
Justin Grant, I think his last name is. He's a director of public infrastructure.
Okay.
And he's the one that actually gave the county presentation. And that's, you go out and actually watch that and see what the MSBU is all about. The municipalities were excluded from that. And
all the municipalities or just us?
Well, so basically Port Richey and New Port Richey were excluded from that.
Okay.
Now, Port Richey actually, when they first did some analysis, we were in there. The Cody River area was part of that. But obviously there's, we can control that here. So we were left out of that. And so the conversations was, if we wanted to do that, we could run something similar to that here ourselves without the county. But the county actually is doing it, and we can be included in that. And so that's the conversations I was having, is that a possibility? And it is. And so and I think the decision we need to make is, do we want to be a part of that? Do we want to do something ourselves, or do nothing? And so that's really all the conversation's been had. And that's why I'm bringing it now. Now, in order to get to that point, we need to, staff needs to meet, and, they can show the maps they have, we show the maps that we have, and come up with what area we'd be looking at, be included, then they can kind of run with that, and then they'll formulate something, come back, and they can have a bigger discussion on it as an agenda item, and we can make a decision whether we'd like to do that or not.
If I could jump in here, I mean, obviously you're free to talk to whoever you want to talk to about whatever you want to talk to. Obviously, you're not representative of the city council.
That's correct.
We tell you to be so. But that being said, I'm a little kind of gray here on, in other words, the county has a number of dredging projects up and down the coast. Every one of them, and if you would weigh in on this, please, is a separate MSBU, because each one is a separate project with separate costs and different people and different numbers of folks. Our particular dredging project, as designed, has always been totally within the city. So if you're basically saying what we should have the county put an MSBU in the city, is that even a doable thing?
It's an agreement between the county and the city. Both sides have to agree to it, ordinances have to be passed, and it would have to be determined where the money's coming from, who the city is providing the funds, who in the county is providing the funds, and how
So
it works.
my basic
It wouldn't be a
conclusion-
one-sided decision.
My basic conclusion being, there would be little benefit to doing that. I just don't see the county covering any of the cost just because. I just don't see them doing it. I mean, again, we have discussed this within the city. It's always been an option within the city of doing dredging and assessing the property owners, the affected property owners, I believe is the phrase, and doing a taxing unit within the city. It's always been an option. And, the first step in doing that is holding an election amongst all those folks in that affected property area, whether they want to do it or not. We cannot just unilaterally impose that on them and say, you are going to be part of an MSBU right now, or whatever the city version. I don't know what that's just
I'd have
called.
to look at exactly what they're doing.
Or whatever, our own taxing district. So, I mean, again, that's always been a roadblock, is that to come up with an MSBU, you have to do a fair amount of work to get a probable cost estimate, just even get a ballpark feeling of what that taxing unit is, what the project's gonna cost before you start slicing it up in chunks and deciding, who's paying, are you paying per parcel, are you paying per linear foot? Last time it was discussed, which has been quite a long time ago, there was a big resounding no, because people in the city had been promised free dredging for years. It was never practical. They were promised it. They never got it because it couldn't be done. The city could never afford it. So, like I said, if Mr. Dude is willing to have some listening to the county on what they might want to offer in this respect, that's fine. I'm certainly not anti-dredging. I never have been. I've just never seen a clear path to doing it. So,
And I think this is an opportunity to have that clear path, because the county is actively pursuing that for those other areas outside the
well,
city.
they basically granted themselves the power to form those MSBUs. That's all they basically did, and they haven't done anything since, to my knowledge. They said they were going to address it during the budget season. So, I mean, I'd be inclined to see, what the heck they come up with before, obviously there's economies of scale. I mean, if all of a sudden our people wanted to do it and a whole bunch of other people wanted to do it, and we wanted to get together with them and, join forces and get a cheaper cost per yard to dredge, that's fine. But, there's a lot of territory to be covered between here and there. So, yeah, I just don't want to get people's hopes up, as in, all we have to do is come to agreement with the county and everything's gonna be swell. Or if you get an MSBU, it's only gonna be like $10 a year, because it's not, it's gonna be a lot of money. So,
Just for everybody's benefit, let me kind of outline how that program works, the way it's been explained to me.
What
And
program? I'm sorry.
This is the MSBU.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Just for people who don't understand.
Sure.
Thank you.
So MSBU, Municipal Services Benefit Unit, it's a taxing structure that allows a government entity to tax individuals to provide that municipal benefit, in this case dredging. So what the county has set up is that tax structure. And the way it's designed to work is they assess the area and they take, it only affects parcels that are but the water. So if you don't have water frontage, you're not going to be taxed on that. So it just is a taxable event for the individuals that have property on the water, and it's based on size. So if you've got a little small waterfront, you pay less tax than somebody with a big waterfront. So that's how it's designed. The real beauty behind it is the way the county's doing it, is that they're spreading. So let's say that hypothetically it's $1 million to dredge all our canals. Okay, it's gonna be more than that, obviously, but just.
Yeah. It was $2 million just to do those two canals a couple years ago.
It'll be $9 million.
For the sake of the discussion.
Where they last left it.
If it's $1 million, and let's say there's grant money that's available out there, $500,000. So that leaves a deficit of $500,000 that would be the burden of the taxpayer for the people that live on the water or have property along the water. What they do then, they figure up that and they give you an estimate of what that would end up being, and they tax it over a 10-year period. And so over the 10 years, you break that $500,000 down by the percentages of your size of your property on the waterfront, yada, 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 and they come up with this number. At that point, my understanding is you can say, you kind of put it out there and, oh, that's way too high, we don't want to do it, stop it there. Or you say that's reasonable, and, we can obviously solicit public input and see if that's something tolerable, because it's going to affect people's taxes over the course of 10 years. And if we move forward with that, what's nice is the dredging actually happens, it's provided, and you aren't taxed until after that. So you actually get the product and then you pay for it, which is nice. So that's the kind of program that they're setting up. And so obviously, as I walk around, talk to people, and there's the top two issues. One of the questions I had, well, the only question as I knocked on doors, what's your top priority for the city? And overwhelmingly, it was dredging and infrastructure. And then there was just a handful of Clear River Landing. But the majority of the folks around the city that I talk to are interested in infrastructure and dredging. So it's an important topic. And this is an avenue to get some traction behind that and actually do that. We need information. We need to make a decision as a collective body, but in order to get there, and like I said, the county is willing to help us along. We don't have to do it, but it's an opportunity. And what's really nice about it is if we do let the county, if we sign on to their ordinance, let the county run it, they take care of it, they take care of the tax and all that, they employ all the dredgers, they do all of the work, and at the end of all that, the citizens on the water get taxed whatever's left. Like there is some, there's no free dredging, that's for sure, but there is some offsets that the county has available. So,
If I may, with one thing, I think you have that backwards though, but in order to do the work, they have to float a bond issue in order to pay for the work. So you actually get taxed before the work even happens. So they'll start taxing you with the floating of the bond issue.
Nobody's gonna dredge without me.
Yeah, so
It's not gonna
they'll float the bond issue, your taxes will go up, and then they'll get to the dredging after the design is, because they can't even do the design work without the bond issue floated. So there's a little bit of taxing run room before you get boats in the water or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I asked that specific question, that was answered. Now, again, that's why I really want them here, that you guys can actually ask those questions.
Yeah, if they know a way around that, I would love to hear.
And again, I mean, we're in comments from council, so we're getting real deep into a deep subject right here. But I mean, the only other thing I would throw in there is I've been involved with dredging this city for many, many, many years. I've always heard people, you threw out the number, it cost $1 million, we're gonna get $500,000 in grants. I've heard grants thrown around for that period of time. I have never, ever seen a grant that would pay to dredge our canals. If somebody knows of one, I'm sure as heck would like to know about it. But we are not Crystal River. You know, people compare us with Crystal River, but places with magnitude 1 springs where they had silt growing over natural eelgrass. That's not us. And it never was. It was never an option. Our engineers looked into it. It wasn't there then, and I doubt it's there now. But, you know, just to clear that up, you always hear grant money thrown out there, and they're always singing that song. And like somebody, show me the grant, show me the money. That's all I have to say. But like I said, we're only in public comment right now. We've got a pretty big agenda. We're spending an awful lot of time on the subject that's an agenda item all its own, if you want to go that direction.
Yeah.
But it's an important topic because
No, I understand. I'm
It
just
is an
saying,
important topic.
it's pretty deep for comments from council.
And all I'm really looking for here is just y'all's agreement to move forward. It's our staff can talk with their staff and they can start putting some stuff together, and then obviously we can talk about it later in more depth.
My only concern is tasking our staff, where right now we began the hurricane season. We got a grace period the first 3 months because all of the storms occur out there in the Atlantic. The last 3 months, it's the Caribbean. We need our team to be prepared and get the city ready for that. Also, I'm not sure if our staff, they're available to take on the extra work right now, because we're still in the budget process. I know a lot of energy is placed there. Our building department is overwhelmed. I don't know if they have anybody to spare to help. It's nice, but you're putting more burden
an
on,
interim city manager.
yes.
Well, and interim city manager and a transition to a new city manager. And as Mr. Kinsella quite accurately points out, generally speaking, majority of the summer, you know, starting in July and rolling downhill from there, we're basically busy on council with budget. Budget is, you know, so, and, you know, all the way from starting in July right up through the end of September, we're doing budget hearings, budget workshops, we're, you know, starting the, you know, the city manager, interim city manager started bringing us preliminary budgets. We start weeding them out, moving them around. They come back with other ones. We spend a lot of time on budget. We have to. It's what we have to do. So, again, along with the other things you said, you know, it's a big chunk to be dumping on the city right now.
Ms. Mayor, I appreciate, you know, the efforts.
Yeah.
I do like the idea. It's something to explore. Immediately, you know, me personally, I'd rather have the staff do what we have going right now. This is my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't see that there's going to be a whole lot of burden to it. Like I said, we've got a lot of the stuff already done. I mean, we were in a dredging project where we actually dredged one of the canals, and we have those diagrams and permits and all that was done. We just basically need to share that with the county, with what the county has, do a little work. I'm more than happy to continue, you know, doing that work. They're going to need to set up some time to do that. I don't think it's going to be a lot. So, you know, I'm not going to beg here if you guys are not interested, but I really think it's something that, you know, our citizens want. And the longer we wait, the madder they get.
Well, I do know our citizens want a lot of things, but I also know they don't want our taxes to go up.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
They were upset we raised the water bill $5.
yes.
Right. Well, this would be an opportunity to find out what it would cost taxpayers.
Well, I can tell right now, just from the work we did for Linda, you came back on, when we first came on, we were looking at this, and we had the number up to almost $10 million.
Yes.
At that point. Ballpark, $10 million. You
Just
said
to
there
do the
was,
2 canals, right?
Oh, no, it was
Stuff was
10
$2 million just to do those 2 canals,
it was
correct?
$2 million for those.
Yeah, just the
canals,
2 major
and then we
canals.
just extrapolated.
There weren't even
across.
major canals.
Well,
It was, and we
Yeah.
extrapolated it across and came up with ballpark $10 million. Real back of the napkin type scenario. I think you said there was 1,000.
1,047 with the county identified it. There may be a little more than that.
Yeah, but some of those canals couldn't get dredged, And there's probably a lot to that, so that may even get smaller.
And that's part of the scope of the exercise, is what would we want to be included?
So just for what we had identified, just what we had permits for, it was $10 million. That excluded, for instance, Betty, Green, all that was excluded from, because we had no permits for those.
And in front of the restaurants too, there's no.
That was out of it as well. So that shrinks it down, and we're at $10 million. You blow that up even more, you're probably, so the tax burden will be high at that stage.
And you've been talking, sorry, it's a clarification question. When this was in the newspaper, there was discussion, the county, my perception of what I read was, the county hadn't decided whether it was just waterfront people who were going to pay, or what parcels were gonna pay. So has it been determined officially that it's just waterfront?
I never read that or heard that. It's always been, to my knowledge, and so I've asked the question, it's strictly waterfront property owners.
I know what you're talking about. I'd heard that kicked around. That was before, though,
Well, I'm saying, yeah, I didn't.
my recollection is, because I watched the county commission meeting, and they specifically said their words were affected property owners. Now, how do you define affected? It was basically left to mean people who were on a canal that's being dredged. So waterfront,
Okay.
those people who directly gained benefit
Okay.
who were in the MSBU, as described by that. Now, understand, that's all they did. They just gave themselves the power to create MSBUs. No other details have happened since then.
Yeah, there's three areas that they are moving forward.
I'm not saying they're not moving forward. I'm just saying publicly, outside of that, I'm sure they're moving forward, because that was the plan, was to come up with some sort of ballpark of what they were going to do this coming budget season, which they're working on. So
Can I, for
I was
this,
gonna say, can I make a compromise? Can we put this on the table for right now? Let Sal get into the position, he's interim, let him get his feet wet, let's see what happens, and let's revisit this discussion in 6 weeks.
because he may say yes now, but they may not meet for 3 or 4 weeks, and he's like, yeah, I'll do anything you want, guys.
So, I just think that's fair.
They figure this
That
out.
might be a fair thing, just put it on
No,
the table
I'm
for
fine
right
with
now.
that. Like I said-
If they're not, if they get mad at us for 6 or 8 weeks while we have a
No, they're
transition,
not gonna get mad.
then that's their issue,
No,
the
it's-
county.
it would just-
But I would like to,
Their vote is failing. If we want to be a part of that, and the only rush would be if we would want to be considered for next year, we would have to have our ordinance and stuff drawn up by the end of this year, so that it could be, so we're talking, this is 2 years out anyway. So I don't think 6 weeks is going to make a big difference, we just hope, but I just wanted, that's what needs to happen.
I have one more question, then I'll shut up.
Sure.
Promises. We piggyback on all sorts of things, fire trucks on Palm Beach, or, I mean, we piggyback on everything. Would this not be something that, let's say the county moves forward and we missed the boat. We missed the boat, that's it. They cut us off, end of conversation. But we choose to move forward with dredging. Is that something that we could piggyback outside of the county with these companies? And that's a procedural question.
I imagine there'd probably be contracts we could probably piggyback
You could
on.
probably piggyback a contract that's out there, but you would miss the
purchase, yes,
MSBU. Yeah.
absolutely.
And obviously, the county has,
And you use this, I'm sorry, excuse me. We use I'll use the fire truck. We get the same pricing as whatever other
You can't
things.
use the fire truck, only they can.
I can use the fire truck if I want to.
He'll like right now. He likes me.
He's gonna let me do the siren later.
But, I mean, we get the same pricing as Palm Beach or wherever else in the county, so, I mean, in the state. So would that be the same thing? We would get the same price as the county if we chose
I
to?
think the difference is what's being talked about is a taxing structure to tax citizens.
Oh, I see.
to pay for
They're
it.
two separate
Okay,
things.
Okay, so yes, you're right.
But you're right, when it
That's
comes
different.
to the construction itself, they start construction, if we come up with our own methodology of financing, we
Okay.
want to be part of their construction project, there's nothing, that of course would be to our benefit, again, economies of scale, without a doubt. Because a big cost of
Sure.
dredging, as is well known for those of us who played around with this sort of thing, is mobilization and demobilization for one thing. If you try to do a canal at a time versus all at once, the price per linear foot goes way down if you do it all at once. That's construction, that's just the way it works, so. But anyway, I agree with you, let's table this for a minute.
Just for a little while, just let
Yeah,
him
sure,
get
that's
his feet in and let's not, Let's let him find the office.
Yep. And one more point here, just to let you know, the apportionment of funds that they have, free money, if you will, grants, whatever. I mean, I think there's $2 million or whatever they have for Restore Act. You know, we would benefit from some of that too. If we did ourselves, we would be on our own to find funding. So there is a benefit there as well, to get some of that money paid for.
I did have one more question regarding what you were saying.
Sure.
Mr. McDonald had volunteered to be on this county CAC. We have a CAC, no offense, and I appreciate him doing that, but would it not be a better continuity if somebody from the CAC?
No,
No?
the county,
things.
the county CAC, A, it's a county function, and B, the county CAC is strictly relating to transportation. They are the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Metropolitan Planning Organization, so it's transportation.
Oh, transportation.
It's all right.
Oh, I'm not, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Nothing but
part of the conversation.
transportation.
Very good, thank you. Thank
And
you
like I
again.
said, I want to put that out. Those were the only 2 volunteers I had.
I didn't see it go out, so I appreciate that, thank you.
Next, I have, there's a large opioid settlement, and I wanted to make sure that for grant writers on or whatever, the Pasco, I think they have almost $1 million or whatever that's going to go out. The settlement's much bigger than that, but for the treatment, prevention, and recovery of substance abuse stuff for affected folks. The deadline to apply on that was by the newspaper article 6/23. Pasco's site says 7/14, but then those dates are approaching, so I didn't know if that was something our grant writer was looking into or not, but that's, I want to make sure you guys knew about that. Boards and committees, I wanted to bring up real quickly. And what the reason I bring this up is right now there's 3 positions on the CAC, and we have, I don't know, 5 or 6 applicants or whatever. So one of the things that I think we need is what is the process to fill open positions on our boards and committees? Do we, and obviously the council can nominate and we vote on it, and that's how they get on there, but do we want to look at first the board or committee actually vets their own applicants, was kind of think what the CAC is currently doing. And then they make a recommendation that, you know, we have these 5, we recommend these 3, and then we take it from there, or do we just go ahead and, I mean, if the process is not well defined. We don't have an application. Like for instance, on a county CAC, there's an application, you go out, you fill it out, that goes, and then the board member can review those, and then they can make the nominations or whatever. So I think we need to, when we talk about boards committees, which the CAC one was one we talked about last council meeting, if we could talk about solidifying what our process is to get members on. I've actually got a few people that are interested in boards here, but we don't really have a defined process, an application or anything like that. It's just like, you know, I throw out a nomination and we decide. I don't know if it's
That actually is the process.
Right.
It's in the charter.
Right.
I mean, the charter is basically, we appoint members of boards committees.
So I want to look at that and see if
Anything
there's-
else, anything that's, you know, exists outside of that is just because we want to do it that way.
Yeah, typically, the committee or board gets the application, they internally review it, and they come up with their vetting process that they come back with, and we say, you know, there's 5 people, we like these 3 people, and then they bring it to council, and council, what do you want to do? At that point, we can kind of do whatever we want, but historically, we've gone with what the board and or committee has suggested.
I would disagree, that would be recent history. It did not, I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad way to do it, I'm just saying that, you know, historically, that's not the way we did it at all. Now, like say with the Board of Adjustment, there is criteria spelled out in there. In Board of Adjustment, you can actually appoint somebody who's not in the city if they're extremely good at what the Board of Adjustment does. It's one of the weird sort of little things that has to do with Board of Adjustment, staying well in our city, and that sort of thing too. But, you know, I mean, I'm not necessarily, you know, different boards and committees are different things. You know, I don't know necessarily if, I mean, yeah, you can have people go to the board and committee first, but I just don't really know if that's really accomplishing a lot. CAC probably more than others because a lot of times people are, you know, participate a lot and then apply for it. So the CAC folks were already familiar with the people and know whether they're a good fit or not, so.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily advocating one way or another, but I am saying that, you know, according to the charter, is very just kind of, we appoint people. Blah, that's it.
How the CAC has done in the past is we've asked them to send a letter to the city clerk, and then those letters would come to us, the CAC, and then we, again, like you said, most times we knew the people because they were active in the committee, so, but,
I mean, I would certainly see a letter of application appropriate in almost any situation where a potential person who wants to be on a board or committee sends a letter to city clerk spelling out why and whatever, depending on a board or committee, what their qualifications are for being on a board or committee, and we can consider that. I mean, you know, more information the better. I mean, I have no problem with that. Nancy?
Sure.
Excuse me, this did come up at a prior meeting. Excuse me, so I've already started looking at other CACs in our area to kind of see what their procedures are and what kind of guidance they have up there. It didn't come up in the context of membership, but it was in the context of the procedures and what we want them to be doing. So I have started that. I just pulled up the resolution that created this CAC. All it says is applications for membership shall be solicited through reasonable means. Qualifications include residency in the city and commitment to spending time required for duties. Doesn't really say much else, much more than that. If you want, I can bring the draft I've started with on the other policies and procedures. I can add some application criteria kind of things that you've mentioned, bring that back to you as an agenda item, and we can move forward.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that, you know, the CAC is the one committee out there that was formed by resolution, so.
That's all we have so
It's
far.
not in the charter.
Yep.
We could sit here tonight and dissolve the
Yes,
CAC.
we could get rid of it and or we could
I
expand it.
mean, you know, so I mean, it's kind of.
But we're not going to.
I'm merely stating
So I will get that to you. And so we can start the
what,
conversation.
dissolving the CAC?
But that's what you decide when I bring you,
Talk to Lynn, talk to Lynn
when I
about
bring you an
that.
updated resolution.
Have a
with
discussion with Lynn about that.
More details on the procedures we would like to see followed at the CAC.
Yeah.
And give them some guidance.
Yeah, and like I said, like I said, if we could solidify that, put it out there, this public knows, hey, if I want to be a part of, because the planning and zoning board, another example, we would, somebody approached me, wants to be on, there's two alternates. They approached me, want to be on there, and the chair of the committee the board told them, we'll just talk to them on the council and they can bring it up or whatever. So the process is different for all different board committees. If we could just talk about each one of those, put a formal process in place, I think that'd help that process move, because it's people, you know, are interested in serving the city. They need to go out to the website and say, hey, I can apply for the P&Z board or what have you. Next, we talked about code reviews. Again, nothing's happening on that, so I definitely don't want us to drop the ball. There are a couple of things I want to bring. I heard through the grapevine that the Planning and Zoning Board thinks that the code's not in their scope. So, and that's, they've been tasked by us to look at that, so. I know in the charter, it says anything that the council points to do, so that is in scope. Just want to make that out, too. That, I did hear that rumor. So, and I think they're scheduled to meet in July. I don't know that they have an agenda.
Not yet.
Okay.
Their meeting is scheduled, no agenda's been cleared.
There was an issue with the seawalls, not have a code there. When I brought that up, supposedly that's just an easy change to make.
Nothing's easy.
Well, it's just including seawalls in the ordinance. or
easy for
whatever.
him.
Right. It's easy to add the word, but yeah, I mean, if that's an interest of the council, I would need to research, make sure we do it, of course, appropriately, not violate anyone's rights, that kind of thing. But it's a process I can definitely begin if the council wants me to look into it.
Are you guys okay with that? Any objections?
Currently, there's nothing in the code that allows code enforcement or building to issue citations for seawalls that are not in the best of condition.
I think we may want to make that an agenda item too. If we're going to be talking about seawalls and making that code change, I think we got to kind of follow the steps on that one.
Yeah, and that's another one where I would certainly like to see, which of course you would do. So what other cities have done, you know, that could be pretty darn subjective right there as to what, you know, constitutes a seawall is in good condition and seawall is not in good condition. So, yeah, that can get pretty deep real fast.
Okay, well, if we get that on the agenda at some point, we can talk about that. It's a hot topic in the community. The next thing, water quality post on Facebook. There's a photo. I think this is actually a post that you may have already seen, but I wanted to go ahead and read it in the record. I think it's important, and it's a good segue into my last item for discussion. There's a picture that they refer to, and I need to. Is there any objection to entering that picture in the record? We can put it on the boards here as I read this statement. Is it?
Well, I mean, you know, there's a picture up on the internet of somebody who shows a picture of what they say is their filter. I don't doubt it. You know, I mean, how valuable it is questionable. I mean, we all know we got water quality issues around here, and the further you are down a old iron pipe, the worse it is. So, I mean, I've been preaching water quality and infrastructure ever since I've been on council. I'm a firm believer in it. I know we should deal with it. But it takes money, like anything else, and it takes an appetite for council to spend that kind of money on something that's not sexy. I used to be in maintenance. I used to run a maintenance department, and the old saying was maintenance isn't sexy, okay? You keep things repaired, nobody sees it, never get any credit. If it breaks, you repair it, you're the hero, you know? So, I mean, you know, if you want to enter a picture of somebody's picture of their water filter.
Well, I just want to display it, and I can enter record do so I can, and I'll go through the photos here, and we'll be done with that.
Go ahead. Well, I don't, what would be the purpose of it?
Well, how legitimate is it? I mean,
I'm not sure it's legitimate. I saw it on Facebook.
yeah, it's a picture on Facebook, you know, yeah, it's.
At the end of the day, I think we had some maintenance issues in the past prior to present administration being here and that sort of thing. I think we've spent a significant amount of funds over the past 6 months or so to install flushers to try and improve the situation, is my understanding. Am I right to that?
Yes.
I saw the post too. I think everyone here seen the post. I think there's a lot of work left to the maintenance and upgrade. I agree it's not sexy. It's always expensive, and it's always a heartbreaking gesture. We're also getting some information next council meeting as in terms of water and sewer rates and everything else from Stantec. Stantec knows a lot more about utilities and maintenance and how much it costs than anybody. We know we got a problem. We're going to get probably a hell of a bill next agenda meeting of what it's going to take to fix this problem, and we've already started fixing this problem. At this point, in this meeting, I'm not sure how much farther we're going to go by looking at the picture or not looking at the picture. We have an agenda item next week. That would probably be a great time to say, hey, this is the problem, and here's the bill we're going to wind up having to pay for.
Well, yeah, I might suggest that, you know, moving forward the budget process, naturally our city, like any city that has a water department, does testing that is required by law. It's very basic testing, and it's done essentially at the well field, so it's what's coming out of the pipe at the well field. We might want to look at some more granular testing into some things besides what the law, you know, the law says you need to measure mercury, you need to measure lead, okay, those are not necessarily our problems here. We might want to look at least doing some testing that expands on the other components of what are in the water, and potentially testing at the end of the lines. I mean, how hard is it going to be to take samples at the end of the lines and run testing at the end of the lines and see what the water is?
It's going to come up iron oxide.
Well, it's going to come up with that, but potentially a lot more. I'm just saying. Yeah, I mean, let's you know, we'll approach it in the budget section.
I agree.
Basically, let's. We all know we got water issues. We all know we need to address them. Well, now we need to talk about how to go about addressing them.
And we're going to start to get a cost of it.
Filter.
I think if we start posting pictures from Facebook, we're starting to set a precedent.
Yeah,
I think that's probably not a good idea.
Okay.
We all know, you know.
We agree that there's a water problem.
And that's, you know,
So,
Doug
and
Huckstaff
we're
made
working
the
on it.
post.
I mean, all any of us has to do is look at how quickly the minerals build up in our toilets. So how, you know, you can't buy the cheap toilet bowl cleaner around here. You have to have the stuff with hydrochloric acid to actually work. So, you know.
Yeah, my only goal was, like I said, he wrote this to the city of Port Richey, and he wanted to, he said, please take a minute to review these photos and have a long discussion about it. So,
We just did that.
exactly. So my, yeah.
And we've been having a discussion about it.
So Doug,
Today's
more
not the
coming.
first day.
When I finished. This is my last thing, and this is, I was going to use this as a segue into this. Obviously, we're heavy into Cody River Landing stuff. We're going to be spending money down there. Those, you know, we've had the last issue resolved, and so those are going out to bid. That's spending a lot of money, and the reason I mentioned this as a segue is obviously we have these water issues, which we've all just agreed that are a problem we need to address. So along with Cody River Landing, I wanted, and this can be brief, we don't have to discuss it, I just would like to see us get an agenda item, maybe the next council meeting or after, as a way to help alleviate our money issues on that. I wanted to discuss this with the business owners down at Cody River Landing, not all of them, a couple, and they are buying into it. I want to look into seeing about creating a special taxing area for that waterfront overlay district. We need to talk about what the boundaries will be or whatever, but the idea would be to self-fund that development. Now, we do have money set aside for that. If we do this alongside that, my thought would be we're funding it with what we have. The additional tax coming in that I'm about to talk about would reimburse us back for that, and we could use that for something else. But just for easy figuring, like I said, I don't know by law what we can do, how much or whatever, but if we say just 1%, and you think about it, if we tack on a 1% tax for the waterfront overlay district on all the restaurants and whatnot down there, and again, we'd have to talk about where it would apply and whatnot, and how much. They report that in with their sales tax. We get that. If I go down and spend $100 at Catches, I'll have $1 waterfront overlay district tax. That dollar would go to City of Port Richey to fund that project to develop that area. The beauty of that is it's not coming off the backs of all our residents, but all the tourists coming in, all the outside the city people that come in and go to those restaurants. It could be a small amount of money individually, but as over time, that really builds up, and that can help. It's important that we continue down and do that project. And what I'm afraid, if we don't find a way to fund that, or find a way to bring in additional money, we're going to have to think long and hard about spending it there and putting it towards infrastructure.
First of all, if you look, if you look at this audit report we have here, our city doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of money from sales tax down there anyway. I mean, sales tax is not a major source of revenue around here. So slicing a chunk of that out is not going to be.
Not slicing chunk, I mean adding on to it.
Yeah, well, therein lies the second problem. State of Florida is very fussy about how cities raise money. We have very specific ways we can raise money. That's not one of them. I would defer to the city attorney.
I would need time to look into that, to be specific and give you the complete answer to it, but my gut instinct is no, that would not
Yeah,
be
at one
something we're going to be
time,
doing.
there was a big discussion back when the casino boat was doing lots and lots of business of instituting a port tax on people that were boarding and using the casino boat. That was found to be not legal.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, no,
Happy to look
that's all
into
I'm
it.
asking. If we can look into
I'm
that.
just saying that the state has very specific ways that cities can raise revenues. We can't just come up with a user tax, so to say.
The way you could do it, which the businesses may not be so happy with, is the same municipal tax.
Oh,
on the
exactly.
district.
That's one of the ways, yes.
Yep, you float a bond issue to cover the cost, and then who's ever in the Cody River Landing or benefits there too, pays it through their property taxes, which is the legal way. However, businesses may not be so happy because now it's coming right off of, it's not coming from
We're not
top
giving it to
line,
them, they're
it's,
paying to
so
make them happy.
that's the only vehicle we have. Of course, we're getting it checked, but that's the most logical vehicle at this point.
And the funds for Cody River Landing are coming from where?
You're right.
That can't be used for infrastructure, can't be used for that sort of stuff. So we're not taking money for Cody River Landing out of the water issue, the water infrastructure issue. So I want that to be clear. A lot of people think, how come how come you're spending money down here, but I still have water problems? Because I can't use that money that we're using for that, for the water. And I want that to be clear, because I understand the frustration, but when nobody explains that to you, that's where your frustration
Well,
comes.
isn't it infrastructure redevelopment that we're doing there? It's roads, it's water pipes, and
It's
that's,
CRA, we're fixing blight.
that's correct.
Yes,
But
that's
that-
blight.
but the
Wa-
thing-
Water pipes are not blight.
And what, the water pipe project that we're doing is not funded.
Yeah, it's actually funded out of the utility portion.
Right.
So,
And the impact fees.
it impacts fees.
Unfortunately.
With, again, any money we can bring in to help defray that, we can use that CRA money for something else that
Now,
CRA allowed to be.
Here's the other avenue that could go for Cody River Landing. This is a different vehicle, and again, this is probably a different conversation because we're still not through consent agenda, public-private partnership for the area as well, where the businesses chip in money up front, the city chips in a portion of that money, however that is negotiated, and then the businesses become a part of that project.
And I might add that in many, many CRAs, they are in fact public-private partnerships.
And that would absolutely be legal and absolutely
Nothing unusual.
be a vehicle for it. So if they all want to chip in $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, whatever that number is, that is an absolute vehicle they can do right off the bat.
Or we can have adopt a street light.
I'm gonna name it Bill's Street Light. Yeah.
I'm gonna name it consent
Way
agenda.
down at the end.
Well, we can just put this on the agenda, talk about,
Well, let's put it on the
What
agenda
options?
and let's get to consent agenda.
and I will,
Put it on the agenda.
I have concluded my comments. Thank you very much.
The next two meetings are gonna be packed full of mugs.
I feel a headache coming on.
Next on the agenda, comments from boards and committees. Anybody?
We're all asleep.
All right.
There hasn't been any.
Wait till,
board
like, we'll
activity.
wait till next time.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion?
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second, any discussion?
No.
I just found out tonight that we should be asking for public comment, so I will ask, anybody would like to speak on the consent agenda? Seeing no hands, put it to vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to council business.
We're to our first item.
Second reading of ordinance 23-687 to adopt accessory structure code changes. I will pass that to Nancy Meyer.
Yes, thank you. And before I get started, I want to apologize. I believe I sent Ashley the wrong copy for your agenda, so I do have the correct copy. If I can get consensus from the board to replace the correct version for the incorrect version in your agenda packet, I would request that be.
Was the correct one on the first reading or the second?
What's in there now is still the first reading, which you made changes to.
Gotcha.
What should be in there is include your changes, which we have, it just didn't get put in the agenda packet. So if we can agree to let Ashley do that,
Yes,
consensus
I
from
agree.
everybody?
All right,
All right,
consensus.
so don't look at the one in your packet because it's not correct. And here she comes.
I've got something to look at, now I can't. look at it.
Well, we fixed it. Here, we fixed
Now
it.
you can look at it.
We have to share. All right. Okay.
I don't play well with those.
So here we go, ordinance number 23-687, an ordinance of the city of Port Richey, Florida, amending section 127-92 of article 4 of chapter 127 of the Code of Ordinances to allow up to 2 accessory structures totaling 200 square feet in size and no more than 15 feet in height, provisions for inspection when the accessory structures are located in a flood zone, and providing for an effective date. And this is the second reading, and it does include the modification requested by council at the first reading.
Number 23-687.
Second.
There's a motion, and a second, any further discussion? I can open up for public comment. I do have one person signed up, Pat Rogers, welcome. Yes, okay. By show of hands, anybody like to speak? Seeing no hands, put it to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, approval of contract of city manager search from Colin Basinger and Associates. I pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the proposed contract contract from Banzinger and Associates, you would request a motion to approve.
Is there anything in here that wasn't in the original?
No, sir.
My last motion was to accept, passenger as included in the last agenda. So this is, we're basically just doing it again.
The significant difference from the previous contract that you used 3 years ago is the price. Was that your question?
No, he was asking, was there any change from the proposal that he approved last, or motion
The
to?
motion I made last meeting on the subject was to accept the contract or to assign the contract, whatever my wording was, to Colin Ballinger as included in the package we had at that time, which we voted yes on. So it appears to me we're just doing it again. It's okay. I'm just asking if there's
Make a
any
motion.
difference.
Let me defer to Sal to make sure did we make any changes in the contract?
Well, no, but we didn't have a formal contract, which is what he sent out,
Okay.
basically.
He just had the proposal.
And
All right.
the attorney's already reviewed it, and we just have it here for approval.
So now you have the contract, the proposal that you saw and approved
That's
is
fine.
exhibit to it.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? Best to the public. Anybody like to speak? Seeing no hands. Put to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Next up is the approval of coastal design consultant scope of service agreement. I'll pass it to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Doing the script one?
No.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You said to me.
I checked off too soon. Next up is discussion of language addressing a city manager's removal from office. I'll pass that to Ms. Meyer for
Yeah,
introduction.
this is my fault that you're doing this, and I apologize, I'll do it as quick as I can. In the process that we're in right now, it brought to my attention that your code has the language which I've highlighted, and it's in your agenda, regarding the removal of the city manager, and not that we wanted to do that for this particular city manager, but when I was looking through his contract and getting things ready for us to move forward, I realized this language was in here. This language is not uncommon. Some cities do have very similar language. I just wanted to bring to your attention that it's not required. You hire a city manager and he, as I, am an employee at your will. You don't have to give him or her a process like this. And it could open up, obviously can extend the removal of the city manager. It provides for hearing time, you having to provide reasonings for you're wanting to terminate the city manager. You could simply have the contract that we are going to negotiate with your upcoming city manager dictate the process of removal. Again, don't have to change it. Many cities do this. I just wanted to bring to your attention that it's not a requirement to have the hearing and all the things that are listed in this 3.04 removals.
Well, my reading of this was always when the council wanted to forcibly remove the city manager. That's why it was there.
Which you could do, because they are at
There's
will.
not a
Right, there's not a requirement, and you could include this within
I
the
mean, the only
agreement.
time, the last time we used this was when we actually fired a city manager.
In my understanding, it went smoothly, and it did not prolong the process too long, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew of the option of it not being there and just letting the agreement that is negotiated with the incoming city manager to dictate the removal of that city
So
manager.
what is your recommendation?
We're not asking your recommendation, we're asking hers.
That's why I let him answer first. That's what you wanted to know. I personally like the agreement to dictate, but there's no necessarily a negative leaving this. It's just, it may prolong it because you have to have a hearing. My one concern would be there's a reason you need him to go, and now you're paying him to sit at home while you go through this process, versus if the city manager agreement dictates the removal, you may not have to go through that process, that long of a process. Now, I do understand, if I can speak for Mr. Duke, when he and I discussed this, individuals looking to come here as a city manager like this language because of the decision they're making, and they want to have some assurance that if you do want them, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but they want some assurance that there's a time frame for them if they know they're going to be asked to move on to be able to do that, versus we don't like you today and you're gone today, and there's no recourse for that because they are at will. So I personally, as a lawyer, like less wording and putting it in an agreement that's negotiated so everyone's on the same page. But again, there's no that you do that. Because many cities have this. Reddington Shores basically just says you're an at-will employee. Almost every other city I looked at had language similar to this, some maybe not as long of a time frame, but similar. Hope that kind of answers your question. So no action, just discussion, and we can move forward, and you can ponder and let me know if there's something you'd like to change in the future or at this time.
Is everybody good with that?
I'd like to think on it, like,
Okay.
I'm pondering.
Ponder.
Yeah, we don't do it now, so.
Let's put on another agenda item.
Good idea.
What are we pondering?
do we want to keep
wanna
this,
keep
or
the
do we want
language
to
in
just
there?
say you're fired?
There's no requirement that that language be in the code. It can be in his.
We can shorten the language, we can.
That's not true. It's under, the charter doesn't have it in the code. It's under section 3 of the code.
Oh, it's in the code.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a code. We can change it, we can shorten it, we can lengthen it, we
Yeah.
can do anything we want.
And just let the agreement address it instead of the code.
How does that work if the agreement has one thing, but it,
Well, I'll tell you right
the
now,
agreement supersedes?
right now, the agreement that Mr. Doot has says the code reigns.
Okay.
That was the agreement that he struck, so it's going to depend on what it says.
Okay, thanks. Now, I'll make sure we're in the right place here. Number 6, approval of coastal design consultant scope of service agreement. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
So the proposal you have in front of you is from Coastal Design Consultants. Their work to put together the application that we would need for an FDOT waiver from enforcement of the law that disallows golf carts from crossing US 19. So this is the scope of services for that. We'd request a motion to approve the scope of services of Coastal Design and start the work and get our application into FDOT.
For motion?
Motion to approve the scope of services from Coastal Design Consultants for the Highway 18 golf cart crossing.
Motion is second. Any further
Should
discussion?
we say Grand Boulevard just for that?
Grand Boulevard.
Motion's amended.
I'm sorry, that is in the scope.
I'm just saying, yeah, it's in the subject, so that's fine.
Thank you.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question on the, where it says assumptions, the following items are not included in the scope of services. I have down here traffic engineering services, design services. I don't quite understand that.
Where are you looking at, Tom?
It's on the second, well, page 66, well, at the very end where it says assumptions. And it says are not included in the scope of services, traffic engineering services.
Right,
Is that what they're doing?
no, they're doing a traffic study and completing the application for us to request the waiver from FDOT. Now, if FDOT came back and said you've got to redesign the intersection, then there'd be an additional cost to that. But right now, they're just doing the traffic study that FDOT requires and preparing our application. So they're not going to redesign our intersection until and unless FDOT required that.
Okay, thank you.
And, you know, the archaeological investigation services are important.
Anything else? That's it. Anybody from the public like to speak? Seeing no hands, put the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion let people read what they're on.
Number 7, police traffic enforcement agreement for the Keys at Cody River subdivision. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to bump that over to Chief Robinson and for his edification.
This is the same language we had when we first got a bill of bank to agree to it. And there is a cancellation clause in there as well. And when we first approached, or actually when the Keys, whatever name they were using at that time, approached us about doing this subdivision, we wanted them to also have that same agreement with us. And I believe it was you that wanted that to be part of the approval process. And it was. So what happened probably a couple of months ago is they came back and wanted to know what the ramifications, for lack of a better term, is if they did not want the traffic enforcement section in the agreement. And so we gave them what those ramifications are, that we would still continue our law enforcement presence and enforcement within the subdivision, but we would not do traffic enforcement because in effect those would now be private roads. And you know, we gave them a couple other some other verbiage regarding the safety of the pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. And so basically tell them this is probably not a good idea, but this is what they asked for. And so that's what we gave them.
I'm a little fired up about this one. I pulled the ordinance that gave this developer the permission to change his usage and all that. The ordinance itself is very specific that the traffic agreement has to be in place. So I guess I'm looking to the attorney as much as anybody. My guess is if he cancels the agreement, he's in violation of his developer's agreement.
This is what came up last time we discussed this. I asked for any other agreements. I don't have an ordinance. I was told that this was the only, so I have not yet seen it. So I'd be happy to look at it. I thought,
There you go. Actually, here's the meeting minutes where we specifically talked about it, that it's a requirement as well. And it's like 4th page, under traffic maintenance agreement. Very specific. It actually says it in 2 spots that he has to keep it.
This development also was told specifically when they were granted that they couldn't drill the water wells, and they were drilling for water on the property when they were told they could not prior to us approving that, or you guys. I was in the audience, so he's also done that. And that has ceased. The building department was out there and stopped that from happening, but he was drilling for wells right near our well fields.
Right next to our well fields.
And he was specifically told prior to giving approval for this development that he was not allowed to do that. Just a little background information.
And it gives Nancy time to read.
Yeah, okay.
You bring this back.
maybe.
Madam Clerk, could you cue the Jeopardy music?
That doesn't help me read quickly. The ordinance you have handed me definitely cites 316-006, which is what gives the city the ability to do this. It does say he's going to abide by it. What I don't know is if this ordinance was in a specific time frame. Has it expired? Is it still in effect?
You can read it all, but it was pertinent to him being allowed to do his zoning change, and there was a host of agreements that he made with it. So from my mind, sure, cancel the agreement, we pull all your certificates of occupancy.
I hate to do this, but I'd like to, if we made this on the next agenda, so I can.
Let's put it on the next agenda.
We can read all of this. This is what I was hoping I would have seen before today, but unfortunately, I didn't have that. So we'll get it figured out.
We'll table that.
I don't want to make him do something that he can't be forced to do, and I want us to do what we can do. So
Yep.
thank you for the ordinance. I appreciate it.
Okay, next up, number 8, code enforcement procedure discussion. I will pass that to.
That's me again. And I will first start by saying my joke was not that funny. I'm sorry. I said nothing was easy. Joe was joking. So I do apologize for that. But I just wanted to talk about this really.
So this is easy?
This is easy too. This is easy. This is a brief conversation. I've just been, a couple of questions have come to me. I know citizens are kind of questioning what's going on with code enforcement. We're getting letters. What are these letters? And I just want the council to know, so you can answer any questions that may come towards you, that code enforcement, from what I have seen, is following the law. He is legally noticing those that are receiving first the notice of violation and the citation for any code enforcement violations. Florida statute and your code require that a certified letter be sent. It doesn't require that he talk to them, that he use a door hanger, that he ask them nicely, none of that. A certified letter to get it started. There's many other steps that happen after that. The point being, when I end up in court, I can show the court this person received notice and they chose not to do it. We don't give them notice, we can't expect them to do it. So it is the legal process is being followed. I know some people, from what I'm understanding, it's a change in the city. So there's some upset about it, but I want the council to know, and of course I can answer any questions you have more specifically about any of the process of the code enforcement and what's going on from the perspective of what I know. The certified letters are by statute and by the city's charter, by the city's code, what starts the code enforcement, and it is required. Many people are getting upset about him, but I want you to understand that he has to do that.
Well, people are probably getting upset about it because for years prior to this current building code enforcement and building instructor, nothing was getting done. There were many complaints throughout the city that how come this boat is here, how come that trailer is here, how come this is there, how come that lawn is up, nothing's getting done, nothing's getting done, nothing's getting done. And now we have a department that is working and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if we want our city to continue to be safe and nice looking, we have to follow the codes. I mean, a personal example, I told them about a boat that I thought was off, and the boat was fine, and my trailer was in my driveway, and I got a hang tag. So, I mean, that's how it was, and I just moved the trailer. I mean, it was there, it was in my driveway. So, it is what it is, and we have to follow the code, and I appreciate them doing. I know that it's not a pleasant job. I can imagine going and telling people that their utility trailer that they have mulching shouldn't be there, but I appreciate them doing their job. So I personally want to thank them for moving forward and doing that.
Yes.
I thought that was for explanation.
That was just explanation.
Oh, okay, so there's no action, he's doing his job.
No, I know some of you are getting phone calls, so if all of you are getting phone calls, I wanted to make sure you all know why certified letters are showing up, and people are a little upset about them, but that is the proper procedure, and that is what's being followed.
So the response is, if you got the letter, you probably violated the code in some fashion, and you should repair it.
Or
And you won't get the letter anymore.
Or start a conversation with Officer Singleton, and there you go. Things will hopefully get worked out.
Next time.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I just want to add there, I actually liked the door tag thing. It's before actually going into the formal process where, it's a courtesy. Let's say I have my boat out in my driveway, drops by, hang tag on there, gives me his number. I can call him saying, hey, I'm waiting on a part or whatever, and we don't need to send out a certified letter and all that. I mean, again, you don't take that and you drop the ball and never put any teeth in the process. But I don't think it's necessarily going from one extreme to another where we were maybe not following through to now we follow letter of law. We don't do that common courtesy. We don't try to reach out. Again, that's what's rubbing people the wrong way.
Well,
I think
I got the certified letter, and I
attacked.
just called him, and I honestly couldn't move it at that moment because it was last year. It was so wet, and had I moved the trailer, I would have broken my water line. And so they said, okay, fine, wait till it dries out, and I did, and he worked with me. So certified letter, hang tag.
Yeah, it's still gonna.
I just made the phone call, and he was very, very agreeable to work with me, and he did wait for X amount of time, and as soon as it dried out, of course I moved it. But so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's the same this way. We're that much farther ahead on a certified letter,
Right.
and
The hang tags, you would still need to follow up with the certified letter.
Yeah,
The hang tag didn't work.
So-
If the hang tag did not work.
Right, if the hang tag did not get a response. We're not there yet. We have to get a vote.
I can't do anything.
No, but we need the motion. Oh, no, that's not, that's right, not an item, sorry. Discussion.
no discussion. We don't have to hear from
I thought you were
anybody
gonna
on
pass
this.
something. I got real excited.
Motion to move to the next agenda.
There you go. Thank you.
Next, item number 9, Public Works and Utility Vacuum Truck Repair. We'll pass it to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's 2 pumps and valves on the vacuum truck that are in need of repair. We've had it evaluated, estimated, it's $14,357.07. I know the next question is, we just bought that. It is out of warranty. We bought a 1-year warranty when we bought the truck, and it's several months past that warranty time now, so.
Plus 1 day.
Almost. Metaphorically, yes, it's short time. It is a sole source due to the fact that the systems that have to be repaired and replaced are proprietary. We would, if we were to ask, there are other companies that will repair pumps, but it would also void the warranty, the other warranty that we have on the electronics and the computerized components. The pumps themselves
That would
have
be the 10-year warranty, that's gonna last forever.
Right. So I would request a motion to approve the sole source purchase of vacuum truck repair. Also to alleviate us, we're currently renting a vacuum truck while our truck is in the shop.
So how much does that run? I know it ain't cheap.
No, it's not. Sal, do you know the number?
It's gonna eat up the cost of this pump repair very quickly.
In short order.
Like the longer we talk about it.
Yeah.
I think, without the figures in front of me, but I believe it's between 12 and 13 a month, thousand.
And how long is it gonna take to get this fixed?
And how long,
Important questions.
I'm sorry, how long, we've already, have we already done a month of that?
No, it's, we've only rented the truck for about 2 weeks now. The Vector is already at the shop, just awaiting approval for this purchase.
Okay.
Stop talking about this.
Yeah. It's, obviously it's a necessity. As soon as we give him the call first thing tomorrow morning, he'll order everything and get, they want to expedite it as soon as possible.
Motion to approve the repair of the vacuum truck for Environmental Products Group for $14,000.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
What's the difference between the two quotes?
Two quotes.
Yeah, there's two quotes, there's 12,000 and then 14.
One was
Oh.
not the approved stuff, maybe?
So, they're on the water, page 1, page 2.
Yeah, they're,
Do these pumps come with a 2-year warranty?
Can we buy another year of warranty?
I don't know.
Check it out.
Are we talking about if they repair these pumps, will they be a warranty?
Yes, these pumps, do we at least get 2 years out of them?
I will find out from the company itself. I mean, we're just trying to.
Yes, please.
Yes.
here's the bad part, we don't have a choice either way, so.
And I did approve the rental of a vac truck as an emergency purchase. The risk of
Oh, no, we have that.
spills, I can't afford that.
We
So
have
No,
that.
of course, yes, absolutely.
that's,
Did, our old vac truck, we don't have it, they sold that or got rid of it, or I thought we,
it's less than functional.
we still have it, but it's done.
Did we surplus that?
That's been surplus. That was surplus.
Sorry, that one's gone.
Okay.
We go get it back, but
But nice to have it, I guess. is my point. But,
The next step is giving Sal a shop vac.
And a long extension cord.
One more question I had on there was $1,000 freight on this, and talks about freight charge will apply for expedited parts orders. It's going to take 6 weeks to repair this? Is that,
I've already spoken to the company here, and, they're waiting on word, and they're hoping, they're playing the long game here just in case, and they just want to make sure that, they want to, say, look, no matter what, this is the longest that it'll take, but they're really hoping to have this done within the next couple of weeks.
as long, we pay $1,000 to have them expedite parts, they're here tomorrow, and then they don't get on for a couple of weeks, and we probably save some freight.
I can ask that, and I can bring that question to them, but
Okay.
like I said, it's.
Gotta get purchased.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public like to speak? Seeing no hands, put the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You guys are quick. Number 10, water well field meter purchase. I'll pass it to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The need is the water well field meters that have exceeded their capacity. In years past, we would have recertified the meters. We'd called in a contractor, recertified, reset the meters, and put them back on the pumps. With our new water pumping permit from the state of Florida, that's no longer allowed. When they reach their capacity, they have to be replaced. And so ours have met their shelf life. And because they are a component of a larger system that pushes them off into the sole source arena. So would request a motion to approve the purchase of water well field meters for $19,186.21.
Motion to approve the water well field meters for Core and Main for $19,186.21.
Second. A motion is second. Any further discussion? Anybody from the public like to speak? Seeing no hands, put it to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, number 11, fiscal year 2024 Penny for Pasco CIP budget. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mercifully, I'm going to pass this to Ms. Goslin.
City manager and I met with department heads and we reviewed Penny for Pasco, our 5-year plan according to the city charter is required. And then this also requires council approval. So we created a 5-year plan with them, their department head requests as to what capital equipment items they're looking for the next 5 years. So we're just looking for any questions you might have and also your approval to add this to the budget.
I have a question on the $1 million monkey in the room. The fire truck, we have it for $1 million. The last one we purchased for $500,000.
Well, they get it for $1 million.
Really?
Their engine, right now, what their engine, current?
I guess they were ready for this.
Yeah. So, as you guys know, we brought the fire truck in front of you guys 3-4 years ago. And we got 2018 pricing, if you remember. That's why we rushed it through that budget year, when it was unbudgeted for us to purchase that. Right now, conservatively, if we were to buy a fire truck today and put a PO, we won't see that fire truck for 2 to 3 years from the PO today for that. So a lot of departments are getting ahead. Conservatively, right now, for the same exact fire truck, we literally took the same exact fire truck, said, how much would this cost us today? It was $980,000. Because aluminum prices have gone up. The federal mandate for DEF, the diesel particulate filters and stuff like that, is going away. And now the engines have to be a whole different style engine. So Cummins is having to redo their whole engine system. And that's roughly adding $100,000 extra just on them complying with the new EPA guidelines coming out with this administration set forward. So there's $100,000 just right there in the increase of the engine of what that will cost. So yes, this isn't, we're not trying to buy a ladder truck here.
Basically the same truck you bought 5 years ago.
Correct.
Or 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
And just getting 2 of them because we need 2 trucks.
Well, yeah, because the NFPA recommendation is 10 years on a frontline service life on a fire truck. And we saw what happened when we run that out to 12 years, and we end up having a year that cost us almost $60,000 in repairs on a fire truck. So we don't want to see that happen again. So we're trying to make sure we're staying proactive and replace the fire truck when it needs to be replaced, because our backup fire truck right now is almost 20 years old. So we're not, when you think about that one fire truck that we have that we run being 4 years old at this point, almost 4 years old, the backup fire truck is approaching the 20-year mark.
So the primary fire truck would be 8 years old at that point.
Correct.
And then you would have the new one come online and then the primary.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that cycle continues, so we don't get into predicament of $60,000 in repairs. Well, that was 2018 repair pricing.
Chief, you're comfortable with 3 cars a year? So we're starting to catch up?
Yes. Yeah. We're almost exceeded our vehicle maintenance budget because we're trying to keep the life of the older cars out on the road. We spent almost $5,000 just on a motor.
Well, I'm just, we've done more in the past, and, you're looking at 3 per year, so I'm asking you, are you comfortable with that number of cars? Keep our fleet current. I don't like seeing old broke down cars out.
What do you mean you're getting air conditioning?
I hadn't gotten to that part yet.
I do have a question. Since we started purchasing these a couple years ago, we did get a K-9 unit. I know we have accessorized, I don't know what the word is, for
I like
for
that
the, put jewelry on for the K-9 bling for the K-9. Are these cars big enough, like to accommodate the dog and all the equipment needed for him and all the equipment needed for the officer, or do they need a bigger vehicle? Because I kind of saw Newport Richie's, and their K-9 vehicle is larger than their normal patrol car.
Right, they have Chevys. One of the vehicles that are in this proposal is for a K-9. It's still a Ford that we currently use. It is big enough for the equipment and for the officer. He kind of wants a Chevy because everybody else has a Chevy, but that's it's not how it works.
Ford City.
That's
Have
just
been
how
for
it
years.
works. Yeah, it's sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
This discussion only, so anything else? Number 12, presentation of annual audit. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
And again, I'll refer that to Ms. Goslin for her presentation.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We got this and we got this.
Oh, what's in the book and the?
What's in the agenda and what we got?
I don't know. Same. Okay.
No, I like it.
It's got binding.
It's got binding, yeah. Makes it feel like all that money's worthwhile now. Over to you, Rich. Take it away, Rich.
So the city completed our financial annual audit for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. So you have before you the annual certified financial report, and it's also posted on our website. And our audit company, EFPR Group, is going to present to you. It's Thomas Smith is his name, and he's going to answer any questions that you might have.
Was there any surprises?
No.
The key word you're looking for are findings, and there were no findings.
He created a little summary for you just to give you the highlights of the audit. And he's going to present to you that information.
His opinion is he's happy.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Rachel. And as Rachel mentioned, we included a one-page summary that was included with the agenda that was sent ahead of time. Unless anyone wanted me to go through 89 pages of financial statements, but I was kind of discussing ahead of time, no one wanted me to do that. So these financial statements essentially got bigger every single year, so I wanted to keep it a little more high level, more bullet point. And as I've heard the background about findings, I like to report right off the bat that we did not have anything of that nature. But financial statements, the audit reports were reviewed with Rachel and city's management, and we did issue what are called clean unmodified opinions on these financial statements. We issued those statements on April 26th when we started the field work in January. So now that we issued unmodified opinions on the financial statements over the parts that include not only your numbers but your footnotes, but that also includes a report in the back which is called the Government Accounting Standards report. And in there, if we came across anything that needed to be reported to the board, any type of significant deficiencies, internal control weaknesses, that nature, that's where we would report that. But as you'll see, if you look at the back of the financial statements, that there's clean unmodified opinions in there as well. There's nothing that you need to be aware of. Management was able to get us everything on a very timely basis. I really want to thank Rachel and her team for that. From a little bit more of a numerical standpoint, at the city-wide level, The revenue exceeded expenses for the year by 1.6 million for the governmental activities. And there's also a column for business type activities, which are water and sewer funds. And there you also see that the revenue exceeded expenses by 200,000. So a very good financial year for the city. Your total governmental fund balance has actually increased by $1.6 million to $6.9 million as of September 30th, 2022. And at the general fund, which we always like to focus in on, there was an increase of $700,000. And we put on a chart in our summary that breaks down the general fund's fund balances. And you'll see that each of these categories actually increased in 2022. So not only you can see the overall increase of $743,000 from the prior year, but all the restricted areas, the assignments, all increased from the prior year. So it really shows how you're thinking ahead and you're restricting these fund balances. They're not all going to unassigned. And there's actually a purpose for the future for these funds. So overall, the city, as of September 30th, looks like they're in a very healthy financial position, which we'd really like to report. And at this point, I really want to turn it over to the board. If there's any questions on either the financial statements or the audit process, I'd be more than happy to go through any of that.
Any other questions?
There we go.
Just as a reminder for any of the folks who may be out and about or don't realize it, this is the audit for the city's fiscal year 2022, which ended September 30th. So there is nothing included in here that's happened between September 30th and that. That's generally the way it works. It takes a while to do an audit. And so, you know, we've done a lot of things. That'll show up on next year's audit. So just wanted to point that out, just as a point of clarity.
And with that, we also do need to put a footnote in the financial statements called the subsequent events footnote, in case there's anything such as material litigation, bond issuances, anything of that nature that would occur between September 30th and the date of our report, which was April 26, 2023. And if anything material came up, we put it there, and we didn't have to put anything in, even though there had been some sad changes to the city since then.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate you calling in.
I'm sorry.
That's it. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate you.
Oh, of course. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Virtually.
That's our last item of business. In the ceiling. Is there any old business like to be discussed? Well, looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion second.